And we are on page 69 in the yellow book. So your homework would be to finish pages 66, 67. And then if you're doing the particle review, I mean, honestly, it's a lot. I wouldn't do the whole thing. I'd maybe do the front or like half of the front. And then on the weekend when I'm reviewing for my quiz, I would do like, you know, the back, or, you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't do it all in one go because it's really tedious. And if you know it already and you're like, okay, I get it, you can just be like, okay, I'm done with this. I do not need to do the whole thing, right? Maybe 52 questions is too many, yes, but I know some people just love to review, right? So they're there if you want them. Okay, so we are looking at the periodic table. Some of this you probably know already. If I said to you the transition metals, where would we find the transition metals on the periodic table? Tell your partner. The transition metals are right in the middle. Okay, so those are our transition metals. That sort of section that's a little bit lower down. I don't know if the actual shading came through for you. Do the transition metals look different than the other ones? Not really. Okay, I tried to make them look a little different. So if you want to put a box around it or something, you could be like, here are my transition metals. Okay, so those are our transition metals. Do we know anything about the valence electrons of the transition metals? No, we don't. They are not easy to predict. So the transition metals, you're like, I don't know how many valence electrons. Now the rest of the main body of the periodic table, so everything except the transition metals, which is shown up here in green. So if you wanted to box it in a different color or highlight it in a different color or whatever, you could do that. So that would be all this section here. And all these ones over here. Okay. Those are the main group elements. And these ones over here are also the main, ooh, why is it writing so funny? Main group elements. Are we able to predict the valence electrons for the main group elements? Chat with your partner about that. Yes, no? Can we predict the number of valence electrons for the main group elements? Yes, we can. How many in group 1? How many valence electrons in group 1? 1. How many valence electrons in group 2? 2. How many valence electrons in group 13? 3. 14, 15, 16, 6, 17, 7, and 18, 0. Okay, so that one's a little weird. All right, so those are our main group elements. Within the main group elements, there are 4 specific groups or columns that you need to know, and hopefully you have learned these in the past. What is group number 1 called? It is the alkali metals. So you'll notice that alkali, so group 1 is the alkali metals. Group 2 has a similar name. It is the, you remember group 2? Alkaline. Okay, so we have alkali metals in group 1 and alkaline earth metals for group 2. So you have to keep those straight. Alkali, it's a shorter word and 1 is smaller than 2, right? So that's maybe how you could remember it. Now, when we go down here, you'll notice that there is no label for groups 13, 14, 15, and 16. Okay? If you're interested in geeking out over chemistry, I could tell you that group 15 is called the, or sorry, group 16 is called the chalcogens, but you don't need to know that, so don't write it down. And group 15 is called the pnictogens, PN. And the only reason I really like that is because it's got a silent P. How many words got a silent P? That's pretty awesome. Pnictogens. But I didn't even know those until I graduated from university and was teaching a course for the first time, and it came up in an AP Chem textbook. And I was like, what? What are those things? So you do not need to know those ones. In fact, mostly, if you were to actually refer to these, group 13 has boron at the top. We would refer to it as the boron group. Group 14 has carbon at the top. We would refer to it as the carbon group. And then we have the nitrogen group and the oxygen group. Or you can just call them group 13, 14, 15, 16. They don't really have any names. However, group 17 does have a name, and what is that name? The halogens. Okay, halogens, halogens, it doesn't matter how you pronounce it. And then finally, group 18 is the noble gases. So on the quiz on next Thursday, you will be expected to be able to label the transition metals, the main group elements, the alkali metals, alkaline earth metals, halogens, noble gases, and the lanthanides and actinides. Now, you might look at that and go, whoa, those are some weird names. However, let's go see why it's not as bad as it sounds. If you look on your periodic table, what is the first element in that row below the periodic table? Go find your periodic table and look it up. In that first row below the periodic table, what is the name of that element? Say it to your partner. Try and pronounce it. And it's literally just 3 syllables. So go with the first syllable. What's the first syllable? Lan. What's the second syllable? Fan. And the third syllable is So it's lanthanum. And what is this row called? They are called the lanthanides. So if you want to write that on your periodic table, you know, and point that out to yourself, you can do that. Can you guess, looking at the name of number 89 here, what that row is called? Okay, so once again, you're going to pronounce it. Okay, so what's the first syllable? Act. And then what's our second syllable? In. So we have actin and then ium. Yes? Actinium. So what do you think we would call that whole row? The actinides. Yeah. Okay, so we have actin. These here are the actinides. So if you're like, wow, that's going to be hard to remember, it isn't, because it's almost written for you. You just have to take away the or the ium and write ides instead. Okay? What happened here? Am I on the wrong page? Oh yeah, okay, I'm doing it in group 4. That's all right. Now, we did mention this before, but just to reiterate, the vertical columns are known as groups. So the up and down are called groups: group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4. Do you know what we call the horizontal rows? Rows are called periods. Okay, so horizontal rows are called periods. So for example, row number 2 is called period 2. Row number 3 is called period 3. Row number 7 is called period 7. How many elements are in period number 1? Tell your partner. How many elements in period number 1? Okay, could you hold up your fingers showing me the number of elements in period number 1? Yes, there are only 2. I would like you to do the same thing for period number 3. Hold up number of fingers that shows us how many elements in period 3. Yes, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the right-hand side, plus 1, 2 on the left-hand side gives us a total of 8. How many in period 2? Tell your partner, how many in period 2? Excuse the interruption. I have an announcement. The Grading Point volleyball players and coaches, there will be an emergency meeting happening in the weight room at lunch. So all grade 8 boys volleyball players and coaches, please go to the weight room at lunch for the emergency meeting. Thank you. Okay, how many elements are in period 2? How many? Fingers up. 8. Yes. So how many in period 1? 2. How many in period 2? 8. How many in period 3? 8. Do you recognize that pattern? It's the Bohr diagram. So basically what's happening is, as we go across a period, we are filling in that shell. And then when we get to the next period, we start a new shell and we start filling it in with 1 electron, 2 electrons, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way across. And then the Bohr diagram starts to fall apart down here. Okay, and we don't really have any time left, so we're going to leave it there. Okay, so we've just done page 69. You don't have to worry about studying anything from that for now. It's just a little introduction to get us going for tomorrow. Okay, your homework, do pages 66 to 67 so that if you run across any difficulties, you can ask me. Because that quiz is on Tuesday, so you want to make sure you know what you're doing before the weekend. And the particle review, make sure you've done at least a representative number of them so you know what you're doing for your quiz on Monday. Okay? Thank you, Matthew.